There are people in America making thousands of dollars a month doing something their friends would never brag about. They clean trash cans. They remove dog poop. They clean dirty mattresses. They wash restaurant dumpsters. They clean dryer vents. They remove graffiti. They install Christmas lights. None of these businesses sounds impressive. None requires a fancy office, a huge team, or a $1 million investment. And that's exactly why they are interesting. Because if you have $1,000, $2,000, or even $5,000 saved, you don't need to invent the next Facebook to start a business. You need to find a problem people already hate enough to pay someone else to solve. So today we're counting down 20 businesses that can potentially be started with roughly $1,000 to $5,000 in equipment, supplies, insurance, marketing, and initial working capital. The numbers I'm going to give you are illustrative rather than guaranteed because your city, pricing, competition, taxes, insurance, and demand will change the economics. But I'm going to show you the basic math anyway, because a business becomes much more interesting when you can actually see how $2,000 of equipment could potentially turn into $8,000 or $10,000 of monthly revenue. And don't skip the final few, because we're not simply ranking them by how much money they can make. We're ranking them by something more important: how easily an ordinary person can look at the idea and say, I could actually start that. Number 20, dog waste removal. Yes, we're starting with dog poop. And if your first reaction is absolutely not, that's exactly why this business belongs on the list. There are millions of American households with dogs, and a surprising number of those owners would happily pay someone else to deal with the one part of owning a dog they absolutely hate. You don't need a storefront. You don't need expensive equipment. A basic setup could potentially cost around $1,000 to $2,000 for a reliable vehicle setup, waste removal tools, bags, bins, protective equipment, insurance, simple branding, and local marketing. Now look at the recurring model. Suppose you charge $20 per weekly visit. One customer is worth roughly $80 per month. Get 50 customers, and you're at $4,000 monthly revenue. Reach 100 customers, and you're at roughly $8,000. Your expenses might include fuel, disposal, bags, insurance, equipment replacement, and eventually labor. If those costs total around $2,500 a month at 100 customers, you could theoretically have about $5,500 before taxes and owner-specific expenses. But here's the part that makes this more than a weird side hustle. You're not trying to sell dog waste removal once. You're trying to convince the homeowner to stop thinking about the problem entirely. That's why recurring routes matter. Once your route is full, you can hire somebody else to drive it while you build another route. You're not getting rich because dog poop has high value. You're building a recurring service around something people are willing to pay to never think about again. And if you think that's disgusting, wait until you see what people pay to clean the thing they put that dog poop inside. Number 19, trash bin cleaning. Your garbage bin sits outside your house all week collecting food scraps, leaking liquids, attracting insects, and developing a smell that becomes particularly impressive in the summer. Most homeowners don't want to scrub the inside of a filthy trash can, and most cleaning companies don't want to specialize in it. That's the opportunity. A basic mobile bin cleaning operation could potentially start around $1,500 to $4,000, depending on your cleaning equipment, pressure washer, water system, wastewater handling setup, vehicle requirements, insurance, and marketing. The recurring model is where the numbers become interesting. Suppose you charge $25 per bin for a monthly cleaning. A household with 2 bins could be worth $50 per month. If you build a route of 150 households, that's $7,500 in monthly revenue. Your expenses include water, cleaning chemicals, fuel, equipment maintenance, insurance, marketing, and eventually labor. If your total operating expenses were $3,000, you would have roughly $4,500 before taxes and owner costs. And the customer doesn't have to love the service. That's the beauty of it. They only have to hate the alternative more. Once someone realizes you're showing up on the same day every month and returning their bins clean, you've turned an unpleasant chore into a subscription. The interesting business isn't cleaning garbage cans. It's owning a route of customers who pay you to handle something they don't want to touch. Number 18, gutter cleaning. Here's a business that looks seasonal and simple until you understand the psychology behind it. Nobody wakes up on a Saturday morning thinking, I can't wait to climb onto my roof and scoop wet leaves out of my gutters. They think about it when the gutters overflow, water starts running down the side of the house, or a storm is coming. That's an important distinction. You're not selling cleaning, you're selling prevention. A basic gutter cleaning setup could potentially cost $1,000 to $3,000 for ladders, professional vacuums or blowers, safety equipment, hand tools, insurance, transportation, and marketing. Suppose the average job is $250. 4 jobs a day for 20 working days would produce $20,000 in gross monthly revenue. Although achieving that volume consistently depends heavily on your market and season. Even if you only complete 40 jobs in a month at $250, that's $10,000 in revenue. If fuel, insurance, equipment, marketing, labor, and disposal consume $4,000, about $6,000 remains before taxes and owner expenses. The real opportunity comes from turning one-time customers into recurring customers. Instead of asking, "Can I clean your gutters?" you're asking, "Would you like us to come back every spring and fall?" Suddenly, a seasonal chore becomes a maintenance contract. And here's the rehook. If homeowners will pay hundreds of dollars to keep water away from their houses, imagine what they'll pay when the problem is happening inside the house. Number 17, dryer vent cleaning. This might be one of the least exciting services you can imagine, which is exactly why most people never investigate it. A dryer vent gradually accumulates lint that can reduce efficiency and create a maintenance and safety concern. Homeowners don't generally think about the vent until something goes wrong, which means you're dealing with a problem people are already motivated to solve once they understand it. Startup costs could potentially be around $1,500 to $4,000 for specialized cleaning equipment, vacuum systems, inspection tools, ladders, a vehicle setup, insurance, and marketing. Suppose you charge $150 per residential job. 10 jobs a week produces $1,500 weekly, or roughly $6,000 monthly. Add commercial properties, apartment complexes, laundromats, and property managers, and the ticket size can potentially increase. If your monthly operating expenses are $2,000, you could have around $4,000 before taxes and owner-specific costs. The most interesting part isn't the equipment. It's the referral potential. A homeowner who just had their dryer vent cleaned can refer you to neighbors. A property manager can give you dozens of units. A real estate agent can recommend you before a property changes hands. The service is boring, but boring services become interesting when one customer can introduce you to 10 more. Number 16, move-out cleaning. Here's a business built around one of the most predictable moments in American life. Someone moves out, and somebody has to make the property look acceptable again. Landlords don't want to spend Saturday cleaning an empty apartment. Property managers don't want their maintenance employees wasting hours scrubbing kitchens. Real estate investors need properties cleaned between tenants. That's why move-out cleaning can work with relatively little equipment. You could potentially begin with $1,000 to $2,500 for commercial vacuums, cleaning supplies, mops, extractors, protective equipment, insurance, transportation, and marketing. Suppose you charge $350 for an average move-out cleaning. 30 jobs a month would produce $10,500 in revenue. If supplies, transportation, labor, insurance, marketing, and overhead consume $5,000, you have approximately $5,500 before taxes. The bigger opportunity is not chasing individual homeowners. It's getting 3 or 4 property managers who continuously need the service. Imagine one property manager gives you 10 move-outs per month. Another gives you 8. Another gives you 7. Suddenly, you're not running around looking for random customers every morning. You've built a pipeline. And that is a recurring theme in this video. The boring business becomes much more powerful when you stop thinking about individual jobs and start thinking about routes, contracts, and repeat customers. Number 15, mobile car detailing. This one looks more glamorous than dog waste removal, but the underlying business is just as simple. People have dirty cars and don't want to spend their weekend cleaning them. The advantage of going mobile is that you're selling convenience in addition to cleaning. You don't need to rent a building. You bring the service to the customer. A lean setup could potentially cost $2,000 to $5,000 for a pressure washer, vacuum, extractor, water system, generator if necessary, chemicals, towels, detailing tools, insurance, branding, and marketing. Suppose you average $200 per vehicle and complete 5 vehicles per day for 20 days. That's $20,000 in gross monthly revenue. But don't mistake revenue for profit. Chemicals, water, fuel, insurance, equipment maintenance, advertising, payment processing, and eventually labor can eat a significant portion. If those expenses total $9,000, you have around $11,000 before taxes and owner costs. You don't even need 5 vehicles every day to create a viable business. At 2 cars a day, you're at roughly $8,000 monthly revenue. The key is increasing the average ticket. Interior detailing, pet hair removal, stain extraction, paint correction, and fleet accounts can increase the value of each customer. And here's the interesting part. A private customer might book you twice a year, but a business with 30 company vehicles can potentially become a recurring account. One customer can suddenly become 30 cars. Number 14, pressure washing. Pressure washing is one of those businesses people understand immediately, which is both its strength and its weakness. The strength is that the transformation is obvious. Dirty surface goes in, clean surface comes out. The weakness is that everyone knows about it, so you can't simply buy a machine and expect customers to appear. You need a better sales strategy. A professional pressure washing setup could potentially cost $2,000 to $5,000 for a commercial machine, hoses, surface cleaner, tanks if necessary, chemicals, safety equipment, insurance, transportation, and marketing. Suppose you average $400 per job and complete 25 jobs in a month. That's $10,000 in revenue. If operating expenses consume $4,000, around $6,000 remains before taxes. But residential work isn't the only market. Restaurants have sidewalks, shopping centers have walkways, apartment complexes have common areas, property managers have exterior surfaces. Parking lots get dirty. That's where recurring contracts become more attractive. Instead of chasing 25 homeowners every month, imagine having 5 commercial customers paying you $1,000 to $2,000 each for scheduled maintenance. You don't need a revolutionary business. You need a boring problem that keeps coming back. Number 13, Airbnb turnover cleaning. This is not simply another cleaning business. The customer is paying for speed. When a short-term rental guest checks out at 11 a.m. and another guest arrives at 4 p.m., the property has a deadline. The owner can't say, "We'll clean it next week." That's why a reliable turnover cleaner can become extremely valuable. You could potentially start with $1,000 to $3,000 for cleaning equipment, linens, and supplies if you provide them, transportation, insurance, software, uniforms, and marketing. Suppose you charge $150 per turnover and complete 4 turnovers per day across 20 days. That's $12,000 monthly revenue. If labor, transportation, supplies, insurance, software, and other expenses consume $6,000, approximately $6,000 remains before taxes. But here's where the model gets interesting. One Airbnb host might have 3 properties. A property manager might control 20. A local short-term rental management company could control 100. Your real goal isn't finding 100 homeowners. It's finding the few people who control 100 doors. That's leverage, and it creates a powerful retention mechanism because the customer doesn't just need a cleaning company. They need somebody who reliably shows up between 2 bookings. When your absence can cost them an entire night's rental revenue, reliability becomes more valuable than being the cheapest cleaner in town. Number 12. Pet waste station service for apartments and HOAs. We started with dog poop in people's yards. Now we're taking the same problem and moving it into a much bigger customer. Apartment communities, condominium associations, HOAs, and commercial properties can have dozens or hundreds of residents walking dogs every day. Someone has to empty pet waste stations, replace bags, clean the surrounding areas, and keep the property looking presentable. The equipment is cheap. You could potentially start for $1,500 to $4,000 with transportation, collection tools, protective equipment, replacement bags, bins, insurance, and marketing. Suppose you sign 30 apartment or HOA accounts at an average of $250 per month. That's $7,500 in recurring monthly revenue. If fuel, supplies, disposal, insurance, labor, and overhead consume $3,000, about $4,500 remains before taxes. But the customer isn't buying a single cleanup. They're buying a property that stays maintained without their staff having to think about it. That makes the contract more valuable. And because you're visiting multiple nearby properties, route density can improve your economics. 10 customers within the same neighborhood are far more valuable than 10 customers scattered across a 50-mile radius. The boring secret isn't simply finding customers. It's putting customers close enough together that every mile you drive produces more revenue. Number 11, mattress and upholstery cleaning. Here's another business where the customer doesn't really want the product. They want the result. A family has a mattress with stains. A dog has destroyed a couch. A tenant moves out and leaves furniture that smells terrible. A homeowner doesn't necessarily want to replace a $2,000 sofa if a few $100s can make it usable again. A specialized cleaning setup could potentially cost $2,000 to $5,000 for an extractor, vacuum, cleaning tools, chemicals, hoses, protective equipment, insurance, transportation, and marketing. Suppose the average job produces $250 and you complete 4 jobs per day for 20 days. That's $20,000 in monthly revenue. At $10,000 in total operating expenses, approximately $10,000 remains before taxes and owner costs. Those numbers are an illustration, not a guarantee, and demand will vary by market. The real opportunity is upselling multiple items in one visit. A customer who wants a mattress cleaned may also have a sofa, chairs, rugs, or car interior that needs attention. Instead of finding 4 customers to generate $1,000, you may be able to turn one customer into a $500 or $700 appointment. That's an important business principle. Sometimes growth isn't about getting more customers. It's about solving more of the same customer's problems. Number 10, gutter and roof debris cleanup for commercial properties. Most people think gutter cleaning is a residential service, but commercial buildings can have enormous roof areas. Warehouses, retail properties, restaurants, and office buildings where clogged drainage systems become a much bigger headache. The equipment can still fit within the $1,000 to $5,000 starting range if you begin with a focused service rather than trying to become a full roofing company. You could spend roughly $2,000 to $5,000 on commercial vacuums, ladders, safety gear, blowers, transportation, insurance, and marketing. Suppose you land 10 commercial properties paying an average $600 per scheduled service, with each property requiring several visits annually. If those contracts collectively generate $60,000 to $100,000 in annual revenue, you've created something much more valuable than random residential jobs. The exact profit depends heavily on access, labor, insurance, equipment, and building size. But commercial customers have a psychological advantage. They don't want their maintenance staff doing specialized work that can be outsourced. If you can become the company that simply handles the job every quarter, you're selling predictability. And predictability is something businesses pay for. Number 9, parking lot litter cleanup. Here's a business almost nobody thinks about because it happens before the customer arrives. A shopping center, strip mall, restaurant, gas station, or apartment complex needs its parking area kept clean. Cigarette butts, receipts, bottles, leaves, food packaging, and random garbage accumulate constantly. A property manager doesn't want to send employees outside every morning to deal with it. A small route-based business could potentially start for $1,000 to $3,000 with commercial blowers, grabbers, brooms, bins, safety equipment, transportation, insurance, and basic branding. Suppose you sign 30 properties at $250 per month. That's $7,500 recurring monthly revenue. If fuel, disposal, insurance, equipment, and labor consume $3,500, about $4,000 remains before taxes. The business becomes even more interesting when customers are clustered together. If 5 shopping centers are within a 10-minute drive, you can service them in a single route. If they're spread across 2 hours of driving, your economics deteriorate. That's why route-based businesses can reward geographic discipline. The person who says yes to every customer may actually make less money than the person who says yes only when the customer fits the route. Number 8, graffiti removal. Graffiti is one of those problems where customers don't want to wait. A property owner can tolerate a dirty wall for a few days. They don't necessarily want a giant piece of graffiti sitting on the front of their business for a month. It affects the appearance of the property and can encourage more vandalism. A basic graffiti removal business could potentially start around $2,000 to $5,000 with a pressure washer, surface-safe chemicals, removal tools, protective equipment, ladders, insurance, transportation, and marketing. Suppose you average $300 per removal and complete 40 jobs a month. That's $12,000 in gross revenue. If operating costs consume $5,000, approximately $7,000 remains before taxes. But the better model is commercial contracts. Property managers, shopping centers, transit-adjacent businesses, apartment communities, and municipalities can need repeated service. Imagine getting paid a monthly retainer to respond within a certain period when graffiti appears. Now you're no longer selling cleaning, you're selling response time. And response time is valuable because the longer the problem remains visible, the more expensive it can feel to the property owner. The most profitable, boring businesses often aren't solving huge problems. They're solving small problems that become expensive when ignored. Number 7, parking lot line striping. Here's a business hiding underneath almost every commercial property. Parking spaces need lines, lines fade. New businesses redesign parking areas. Warehouses repaint loading zones. Handicap spaces need to remain clearly marked. Fire lanes need markings. Yet almost nobody thinks about the person who paints those lines. A lean setup could potentially cost $2,500 to $5,000 for a commercial striping machine, paint, stencils, measuring equipment, safety cones, transportation, insurance, and marketing. Suppose you charge $1,000 for an average small parking lot project and complete 15 projects in a month. That's $15,000 revenue. If paint, fuel, equipment maintenance, labor, insurance, and other expenses consume $8,000, approximately $7,000 remains before taxes. But you don't necessarily need 15 brand new customers every month. Property managers manage multiple properties. Contractors need striping after resurfacing. Warehouses need markings. Churches, schools, and apartment complexes periodically repaint. The real business opportunity is getting into the contractor and property manager ecosystem so you're called whenever a project needs striping. The equipment is simple. The relationship is the moat. Number 6, Christmas light installation and removal. This business sounds seasonal, but that's exactly what makes the economics unusual. People want their homes decorated for a few weeks, but don't necessarily want to buy, store, install, repair, remove, and organize thousands of feet of lights themselves. A small professional operation could potentially start with $2,000 to $5,000 for ladders, safety equipment, commercial lights, clips, extension equipment, storage bins, transportation, insurance, and marketing. Suppose you charge $1,000 for an average installation and removal package and complete 30 homes during the season. That's $30,000 in revenue from a business that may operate intensively for only a few months. If equipment, labor, transportation, insurance, replacement lights, and marketing consume $15,000. Roughly $15,000 remains before taxes. The bigger opportunity is commercial work and premium residential properties, where the ticket can be much higher. But there's an even better psychological angle. Customers don't necessarily want the cheapest installer. They want someone who shows up before Thanksgiving, gets everything working, takes it down afterward, and doesn't leave them with a garage full of tangled wires. You're selling convenience around a deadline. And deadlines make people pay attention. Number 5, commercial floor cleaning. Think about a supermarket, warehouse, restaurant, medical office, gym, or retail store. Thousands of people walk across its floors. Those floors get dirty, and the business can't simply close for 3 days every month to clean them. Specialized commercial floor cleaning solves that problem. You could potentially start with $2,000 to $5,000 for a floor machine, wet vacuum, chemicals, pads, transportation, insurance, and marketing. Suppose you sign 15 businesses at an average of $600 per month. That's $9,000 in recurring revenue. If labor, chemicals, transportation, insurance, equipment maintenance, and overhead consume $4,500, about $4,500 remains before taxes. Now imagine you're not the person pushing the machine. You hire someone and manage multiple routes. Suddenly, the equipment you bought for a few $1,000s becomes the foundation of a business serving dozens of locations. And the reason commercial clients can be attractive is recurrence. A restaurant doesn't want its floor cleaned beautifully once. It wants the same standard maintained every week. That means your best customer isn't the one who pays you the most today. It's the one who keeps paying you next month. Number 4, mobile tire and emergency roadside service. Now we're moving from inconvenience to urgency. Imagine you're driving home at 9 p.m. and discover a flat tire. You don't care about finding the cheapest tire service in the city. You care about getting home. That urgency can create a premium for mobile roadside service. A basic operation could potentially start around $3,000 to $5,000 for tire tools, compressor, jack systems, safety equipment, inventory of common supplies, vehicle setup, insurance, and marketing. Although licensing and local regulations must be checked before operating. Suppose you average $150 per emergency service call and complete 4 calls a day for 25 days. That's $15,000 monthly revenue. If fuel, inventory, insurance, maintenance, marketing, payment processing, and other expenses consume $8,000, around $7,000 remains before taxes. The real opportunity isn't necessarily fixing every tire yourself forever. It is building relationships with fleets, delivery companies, property managers, towing companies, and roadside assistance networks. One fleet can generate repeated calls. One partnership can generate customers you didn't have to advertise for. But there's a warning. Emergency businesses can destroy your lifestyle if you build the entire model around answering calls 24 hours a day. The goal is not to create a job where your phone never stops ringing. The goal is eventually to build a service operation where other technicians handle the calls. Number 3, junk removal with a trailer, not a truck. Most people imagine junk removal requiring a $50,000 truck. It doesn't have to start that way. You can potentially begin with a used utility trailer, basic moving equipment, tarps, straps, protective gear, a vehicle capable of towing it, insurance, and disposal funds. Depending on what you already own, the initial incremental investment could potentially fit inside $2,000 to $5,000. And the demand is everywhere. People move, people renovate, people inherit houses, landlords clear apartments, contractors have debris, businesses replace furniture. The customer isn't paying you because hauling garbage is difficult. They're paying because they don't want to spend their Saturday loading a couch into a vehicle and driving it to a disposal facility. Suppose you average $400 per job and complete 40 jobs a month. That's $16,000 gross revenue. Disposal fees, fuel, labor, insurance, advertising, vehicle maintenance, and trailer costs could consume $9,000, leaving around $7,000 before taxes. The margins depend heavily on what you're hauling and local disposal rates, but the model has a powerful scaling mechanism. You can start solo, then add a helper, then another truck and trailer. The business grows because you are selling the removal of an inconvenience. An inconvenience is one of the most reliable things people pay to eliminate. Number 2, commercial trash can and dumpster cleaning. This is where the video gets appropriately disgusting. Restaurants, apartment communities, businesses, and property managers have dumpsters and large trash containers that can become filthy, smelly, greasy, and unpleasant. Most employees don't want to clean them. Most customers don't want to stand near them, and property owners don't want them creating complaints. A specialized mobile cleaning operation could potentially start around $3,000 to $5,000 for pressure washing equipment, cleaning systems, water handling, protective equipment, chemicals, transportation, insurance, and marketing. Suppose you sign 50 commercial accounts at an average $200 per month. That's $10,000 recurring monthly revenue. If water, chemicals, fuel, equipment maintenance, labor, insurance, disposal, and other expenses consume $5,000, approximately $5,000 remains before taxes. But the real opportunity is not charging someone $200 once. It's creating a scheduled service every week, every 2 weeks, or every month. Restaurants produce trash constantly. Apartment communities produce trash constantly. That means the problem doesn't disappear after you clean it. It comes back. And that's exactly what you want from a boring service business. A problem that returns is not necessarily bad news. If customers hate solving it themselves, a recurring problem can become recurring revenue. Number 1, a route-based boring service business. This final idea isn't one specific service because by now, you should have noticed something more important than the individual businesses. Dog waste removal, trash bin cleaning, parking lot litter, commercial floor cleaning, dumpster cleaning, pressure washing, gutter cleaning, dryer vent cleaning, and even mobile detailing can all follow the same basic model. You start with one service, one vehicle, and a small number of customers. You perform the work yourself. You learn what customers actually want. Then you stop thinking like a worker and start thinking like a route owner. Imagine you spend $3,000 getting a simple service business operational. You find 20 customers paying you $100 per month. That's only $2,000 in recurring revenue. And after expenses, you may barely have much left. But those 20 customers teach you the business. Then you reach 50 customers at the same average price. Now you're at $5,000 monthly revenue. At 100 customers, you're at $10,000. At 200, you're at $20,000. Of course, expenses rise as the route grows, and not every customer will be equally profitable. But something changes when the customers are concentrated geographically and the service is standardized. You can hire someone to perform the work. You can give them a route. You can schedule recurring appointments. You can monitor quality. You can sell another route. And eventually, you may have multiple people servicing customers while you're spending more time on sales and management. That is the transition from a job to a business. And this is the part I want you to remember, because it changes the meaning of almost every business on this list. The goal isn't to find a business where you can make $10,000 tomorrow. The goal is to find a boring problem that someone already pays to solve. Start cheaply enough that failure doesn't destroy you. Learn the economics, and then create a repeatable system around it. That's why the $1,000 to $5,000 starting range matters. If you need $100,000 before your first customer, you are taking a completely different risk. If you can start with $2,000, get 5 customers, learn the process, and reinvest the money, you're buying yourself something far more valuable than equipment. You're buying information. You learn which customers pay on time. You learn which services have the best margins. You learn how long each job actually takes. You discover how much fuel costs. You discover which neighborhoods are profitable. You discover which customers cancel. You discover which services customers ask for next. And that information is what lets a tiny operation become a real business. Think about the difference between 2 people. The first person has $5,000 and spends the entire amount trying to create a perfect business. They build a website, order expensive equipment, print thousands of flyers, create a logo, rent an office, and tell everyone they're an entrepreneur. 6 months later, they still don't know whether customers actually want the service. The second person spends $2,500 on equipment, keeps $2,500 as working capital, and starts selling before everything looks perfect. They get their first customer, then their 5th, then their 10th. They discover that customers don't care about the logo. They care that the person shows up on time. They discover that one neighborhood produces more profitable customers than another. They discover that commercial accounts are worth more than one-time residential jobs. They raise their price. They improve their route. They reinvest. 6 months later, they may not have a glamorous company, but they have something the first person doesn't have: evidence. And that's why I deliberately chose businesses that ordinary people can relate to. You don't need to imagine becoming the next billionaire tech founder. You can look around your own neighborhood and find problems that people already pay to make disappear. There are dirty cars, dirty trash cans, clogged gutters, full dumpsters, overgrown yards, dirty floors, abandoned furniture, dog waste, stained mattresses, faded parking lines, broken or dirty property surfaces, businesses that need recurring maintenance, people who need things moved, people who need things cleaned, people who need things repaired. The opportunities are not necessarily hidden because they're secret. They're hidden because they're boring. And here's why these businesses are interesting. The barrier isn't always money. Sometimes it's the work itself. Most people don't want to clean dumpsters, pick up dog waste, haul junk, or scrub dirty floors. That means you're often competing against people's unwillingness to do the job, not just other businesses. But don't confuse cheap to start with easy to make money. A $2,000 business still needs customers, insurance, marketing, fuel, equipment, and good pricing. If you charge $200 for a job but spend 4 hours doing it and another $70 on fuel and supplies, that $200 isn't your profit, it's your revenue. So before spending a dollar, answer 5 questions. What will it cost to start? What will each job really cost? How much can I charge? How often will the customer return? And can someone else eventually do the work? That last question matters most. If you have to personally perform every job forever, you've created a job. If you can turn the work into a repeatable route, hire someone to run it, and keep the customers coming back, you've started building a business. And you don't need to think, how do I make $1 million? Start smaller. Can I get my first 10 customers? Can I turn them into recurring customers? Can I get to 50? Can someone else do the work? Can I build another route? That's how these businesses grow. Not through a magical idea, but through one customer, one route, and one repeatable system at a time. And there's one pattern behind almost every business on this list. People are paying because they don't want to deal with the problem themselves. You're not really selling a pressure washer, a vacuum, or a trash bin cleaning machine. You're selling time, convenience, and relief. So stop looking for a business that sounds impressive. Look for a problem people already hate enough to pay someone else to solve. Because the person with the fancy idea isn't automatically the one who wins. The person who solves a real problem profitably and can get customers to keep paying is.